TikTok live yet again. What's up? New episode of the podcast dropped today. It's not normal. Episode 11, which is really pretty crazy that we're 11 episodes in right now. I love that when I go to my homepage, it's just a new Codico video every single time. Let's see. YouTube. Let me hop on my channel here. All right. So, yeah, in this week's episode, we're talking about the decision to go no contact and setting boundaries with your narcissistic parent. It was a topic I was excited to get into because it just felt really relevant in my life right now, especially with like the holidays just passing and, you know, the new year and all that stuff. I think that time of year always like prompts you to think about things like that. And it's been, I guess, about 8 months at this point, I want to say. Hello to everybody who's joining. It's been about 8 months, I think. Let me see. June, July, November, October, November, December, January, 7 months. 7 months at this point, no contact, low contact, whatever you might call it. I did bump into my parents not too long ago. So I guess that kind of broke the no contact a little bit, but it was not voluntary. And I mean, I think the decision to go no contact is like rarely an easy one when you're talking about your relationship with family members or with, you know, your parents in particular. I remember feeling like it wasn't a decision that I wanted to make to stop talking to my parents. I think it was just something that I kind of like came to that conclusion after always trying to like fix things, and, you know, I would try again and then it just wouldn't work. And it got to the point where I was like, I can't fix this on my own. And not only that, but now I'm like starting to realize, you know, why I am the way I am and where all of this stuff came from. And I want to feel comfortable talking about that with the people who, I guess, their behavior was the root of a lot of these issues. And, you know, recognizing that I was starting to kind of put some of the work in, and that my parents weren't necessarily doing the same. It just felt a bit unfair, I guess, to keep, I guess, in contact or to maintain a relationship with people who had no interest in like really resolving anything in a healthy way. But yeah, so the decision to go no contact is definitely a tricky one. And that's what I talk about in this week's podcast episode, as well as just, you know, setting and maintaining boundaries, which can be a really difficult thing to do, especially when you grow up with a narcissistic parent. I think I know that I viewed myself as an extension of my parents for most of my life. You know, just like I owed them everything, you know, all of my time and attention and energy, I feel like went to them first, even before myself. And I didn't know what boundaries were. I didn't know what they were. I didn't know that I could set them, being the kid in a parent-child relationship. So that was a big learning experience for me, just understanding like what boundaries are and how to set them and how to feel comfortable, you know, saying no, or I guess just the things that I am comfortable with, the things that I want to do. And yeah, it's been a bit of a journey. That is for sure. So we're 11 episodes in right now, which is pretty crazy. We've got 11 podcast episodes out. They're out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And I also just recently started putting out a new series on YouTube called Subreddit Storytime. And if you're like me, Reddit was a mystery for a really long time where I had no idea how it worked or what it was. But once I kind of started to understand it a little bit more, there's a ton of information on there. There are a lot of different communities. And I found the Raised by Narcissists subreddit, which was really eye-opening for me because so many people had kind of described situations similar to mine throughout my life. And so not only did that make me feel a little less alone, but I guess it gave me some perspective, you know, in terms of what other people had gone through, how they felt, how they handled it. Hello. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I don't know, I see people all the time, like, doing the Am I the Asshole, like, subreddits and reading them and reacting to them and stuff. And I was like, this is such a great way to, I guess, offer up some more perspective. And, you know, because it's one thing when you say, like, okay, narcissists gaslight you, right? But it's like, what does gaslighting actually look like? I think so often the real life examples are what allow you to relate it to your own life, where it's like, I may not know entirely what it feels like to, you know, be gaslit or whatever, to have someone try to gaslight me. But if I describe a situation where someone was being gaslighted, that might ring a bell and be like, oh, okay, like I've experienced something like that. And so I feel like it's a really cool way to continue to, like, share stories, you know, and to continue this conversation. And I'm really excited about it. And when this live is over, if any of you want to head over to my YouTube, which is linked in my bio, let me know what you think of that new series. I've got 2 episodes out so far, and, you know, it's a brand new concept, and it's pretty exciting. So let me know what you think, and if you'd like me to do more. Mac, I was able to walk away from my narcissistic parents with less anxiety by watching your TikToks. That's so awesome. Congratulations to you. And, like, that makes me so happy. I think all the time about, like, younger me, and if I had known about any of this, you know, maybe I would have had a little bit more confidence to stand up for myself if I knew that, you know, the behavior that I was kind of enduring, I guess, was really unhealthy and objectively wrong. You know, I maybe would have felt a little more comfortable putting my foot down, or a little more self-aware, I guess, of what I was going through. And I'm so glad that any of my videos have done that for anyone, because it's such a strange thing to go through, you know, truly. And I think one of the biggest positives in all of this for me so far has just been hearing how many of you are, you know, feeling less alone now, because we aren't alone in this. But it was similar for me before I started sharing my experience. I felt like I was alone in this, you know, like this was kind of a unique experience to me. And it's so reassuring to find a community of people who have actually been through the same thing or something similar, to validate your own experience and your emotions. It's really awesome. So that's awesome. I'm really glad. Hey, Nat. What's up, girl? Wise-a-wolf or Wiz-a-wolf? Is it a long or a short I? Your videos are giving me reassurance that I am not alone, healing myself from the gaslighting. They told me like I was making things up. They hurt me. You are most certainly not alone. M. Rose, what's up? Hey. Oh, I'm so glad. And hopefully 2024 is even a better year for you and your relationships and your healing and everything. Oh, Mac, that's so awesome. That makes me so happy. Just got home from work. I'm going to go see Mean Girls later. Fire. And I appreciate you hopping on. I always love...
There's a new Mean Girls out.
A new one?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that. Let me know how it is. I had no idea that there was a new one out. But I appreciate you hopping on. I always love to chat. Aw. That's so cool. It's incredible how if one person is brave, others are brave too. That's so sweet. But I think that anytime I like make a video and maybe I'm hesitant about, you know, the subject matter, or if I feel like it's more of a sensitive topic, or if I'm like, I don't know, like these are the kinds of things that it makes me think, or this is where my head is at, where I'm like, you know, maybe this is a little uncomfortable to talk about, you know what I mean? Or I don't know how I'm going to feel like putting this out there. But there is so much strength and power in vulnerability. And I think growing up with a narcissistic parent, you're not ever really encouraged to be vulnerable. And not only that, it can be unsafe, I guess, in ways if you're vulnerable, because if you really like lay out there how you're feeling, or, you know, something, about you that you're insecure about, or whatever, a more vulnerable emotion, so often I think a narcissistic parent can use that against you, or to control you, or as leverage. And so it kind of makes you want to hide those things and to not share them. But it's so important to not let, you know, a few people in your life who have maybe made you feel that way, to not let that and your experience with them like persist to the rest of your life, to kind of have you remain fearful of sharing those things, you know, because what's the worst that's gonna happen? You're gonna be upset with me because I said something that felt true to me, you know, like, then maybe it's better off that you're not in my life anyway. And it's a process, I guess, to realize all those things. But I'm so happy to be vulnerable and to be talking about all of this stuff, because it's so important. M. Rose, can I ask you, do you have any regrets? Like, of course, you are probably healthier now, but does the random sadness affect you? Well, I don't have any regrets. And I think the reason for that was because of how, I guess, I handled my situation in the months following, or even the years following me moving out of my family's house, where it was a really difficult decision for me to make in the first place, having grown so close to my parents and to my family, feeling like me leaving was me abandoning them, and also being told that on top of it. You know, it was really difficult for me to like take a stand and do something for myself that I believed was right. But after that, I remember just like always trying. I tried a lot, and I feel like I would give my parents a lot of opportunities to, you know, make progress, to take a step forward, to have the to have the uncomfortable conversation so that we can start to heal together, like in a real way. And time again, when that was kind of like shut down or just like denied, you know what I mean? Like, no, this isn't going to happen. We're not going to do this. This never happened, blah, blah, blah. Eventually it got to the point where I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm just setting myself up for failure. But I was like, let me do this one more time, you know? So I feel like I tried as much as I could, and then I tried again, and then maybe even one more time, so that in my own mind, now I was like, if this goes the wrong way and we end up not talking, or if our relationship stays rocky, like, I will have the peace of mind knowing that I did everything in my power to try to rectify this. And then if it still didn't work, then that's not on me, you know? And so that's been something for me that's really kind of given me peace of mind. And I don't really have any regrets, you know? I think that I handled it as well as I could have in the moment, you know? So, yeah. But random sadness, yeah, definitely still. I feel like you don't have to have any regrets to sometimes still feel a little upset, or, you know, to feel that grief for your relationship with your parents, or, you know, kind of coming to terms with like a new reality. I feel like that can still totally be present, even if you don't regret the decision that you made. Thank you, Nat. I love this community. I am so thrilled to be a part of it, and I'm so happy that I know it exists now, because I had no idea for a long time. Yeah, if your vulnerability doesn't align with their perspective, it's used against you. Exactly. I couldn't have said it any better myself. And especially if you communicate to them that it's something that you are vulnerable about, you know, where it's like, this makes me a little uncomfortable, or I'm uncertain about this thing. It's like, all right, I have that over you now. Like, you let me in a little bit. And so like, now I can use that to manipulate you. And it's like, but you're my parent. Like, no, don't do that. Is it normal for the narcissist to always play the victim? I've accepted that's my mom, but trying to love her. So I I have a series or a playlist of videos on my TikTok, on my homepage, called I Did the Research. And that's basically where I just like think like terms that I've learned throughout my healing journey that have kind of helped me to understand the things that I've gone through. I just like break it down really simply, what it is, what it looks like, and like the different roles and things like that. And I talked in the most recent one, I think, about triangulation, and that normally narcissists triangulate and they fall into one of three roles. And one of them is the victim, where they always feel like they're kind of portraying that they're helpless and that they're in need of rescue and that someone is taking advantage of them. And so maybe not always, but I think the victim role is definitely familiar to a lot of narcissists, I would imagine. They want you to kind of like come and save them. Hello, Mexico. Thank you for hopping on. The first book that I read on my healing journey was The Science of Stuck by Britt Frank, and it was definitely very helpful. It was a good starting point on my healing journey, so I would definitely recommend that. I've got that linked in my bio also. I've got the Amazon link to that if you are interested. Oh, for sure. And keep them coming. If anyone has any questions or whatever, like, send them my way. That's what we're here for. I grew up with a narcissistic father and mother, so I feel sometimes that I'm also a narcissist. So in the research that I've done, it seems like narcissistic personality disorder is a medical diagnosis, right? And I think the reason that it's so rare is because so few narcissists ever question whether or not they're narcissists and seek help. So I think the fact that you're even questioning that is a good sign. But if you grow up with narcissistic parents, I don't think it's uncommon to kind of grow up and mimic some of the behavior that you were exposed to, which that was the case for me also. Where I don't consider myself to be a narcissist. I feel like I work every day to be the opposite of that. But definitely in, the year probably following moving out of my family's house, I noticed some narcissistic tendencies within myself. And I think it was just me mimicking a lot of what I had grown used to throughout my childhood and a lot of the behavior that I believed to be right or true. And so I was just doing those same things because it's like, okay, this is how this was handled, so I guess this is how I handle it too. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a narcissist yourself. Yeah, dealing with a narcissistic family is very difficult, very confusing. It can be really hard to heal from a lot of the trauma that you endured in that environment. It's definitely a process, and it's important that you are patient with yourself, that you give yourself time. Thank you so much to everybody in the comments who is saying all of these really nice things. Hello to Mexico. Wow. Hello to Louisiana. Mel, you are most certainly not alone. And I'm really glad that we crossed paths, that my videos made their way to you, and that you're here. Because what an awesome community this is. In the comments of so many of the videos that I post, like, everyone is so supportive and understanding and empathetic. Especially, I posted a video talking about a personal accomplishment of mine that I was really proud of, and my parents sort of like mocked me for it, and it's not the reaction that you want from a parent for something like that. And so many of you in the comments started talking about your own personal accomplishments and congratulating one another, and it was so wonderful to see, like, just other people being happy, or people being happy for other people, because it's nice to see other people happy, even if, we're not directly involved in whatever it is that's making them happy. If we're not going to benefit from it ourselves, it's just like, I'm happy for you, and that's all that it needs to be, and that's so awesome. It's reassuring also, because I feel like that's something that you don't encounter very often. Write a book this year. You know, I have definitely thought about writing a book, and it is not off the table in the slightest. I recently typed something up that I actually felt like this would be a really good prologue for a book, because do you ever have those moments where like you have something that you have to work on, right? And like, let's say it's by a certain date. And if you sit down to work on it, but like you just can't, none of the ideas are flowing. And so you could sit there for like 4 hours and get nothing done, or the little that you do get done is just like so bad. But then other times, like super spontaneously, you could just sit down and be like, I think I'm going to work on this thing for a little while. And then in 2 hours, you have like the greatest product ever. I feel like that's kind of what happened for me there. And it definitely had me thinking, God, would you buy my book if I wrote one? Oh, that would be so, imagine I could be an author. Let's see. I struggle with CPTSD from abusive parents, but the point is that this is my last year in studies before I can move out, but trauma literally paralyzes my academic success, and their abuse is still going on, and I feel lost and stuck and hopeless. First of all, I am so sorry that you're enduring any kind of trauma, and, you know, it sucks that it's affecting your academics. I would say like the most challenging time in my life academically was in high school, and I was also enduring a lot of bullshit at that time. And I think my best advice for anyone who is still currently in a narcissistic or an abusive environment is to recognize the behavior, right? To understand what it is, to know that it's not personal. You know what I mean? Like if you're dealing with a narcissistic parent, I don't necessarily think they always target one person in particular because of who that person is. I think more often than not, other people just play a role for a narcissist. And, you know, understanding, I guess, that it's not something that is warranted. It's not something that's in your control. It's not like you're doing anything to deserve this kind of behavior. It's because this is probably a result of someone else's unresolved trauma that they're acting in this way, right? And they're not aware of it. And to just kind of remind yourself, I remember times when I was living with my family still, when, you know, I didn't know any of this information, like the technical terms, but there were times when I was like, this is not fun. And I remember thinking to myself, like, well, at least I know what not to do. And I feel like that was my only way of like twisting my experience in a positive, or like finding a silver lining, is like, once I'm out of this environment and I have control over my own life, like I am never going to do this, that, or the other thing. So I don't know. I hope that was helpful a little bit, if anything. Slessy? Is that how you say that? Slessy? Hi. And thank you. How did your parents react to your videos? They haven't. I'm pretty sure, like I said, that my parents at least know about my TikTok. I don't know. This was never confirmed. I've never spoken to them directly about it. And so, as far as I know, they're just going on as if they don't exist. Hi, Ashanti. I just hopped on probably like 20 minutes ago. Jess, I'm so happy to hear it. That's amazing. Astral, thank you so much. It's curly. It is curly AF today. Not that it's not this curly every day, but if I go a couple days like wearing a beanie, it'll flatten down just a little bit, which I don't always mind, but I've come to really love my hair. It was a journey to get here. Oh my gosh. So I don't know if this has happened. I'm sure it's happened to everyone else, not everyone else, but to other people. When I was younger, up until like the 6th grade, my hair was straight. Like naturally, I would get out of the shower and it would dry and my hair was straight. And then 6th grade, my hair started to get like a little wavy and then a little curly and curlier and curlier and curlier until it was this. And my hair in high school was like down to here. It was like much longer. And I was like still in a tomboy phase where like I don't know, I wasn't into clothes very much, and I wasn't into makeup, and I didn't know how to style my hair. I had no idea what to do with it, and it was just big and curly and frizzy, and so I would straighten it every single day. And no one in high school knew that I had curly hair. And then I graduated, and I was going to college, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a new crowd. I shouldn't be straightening my hair every day, so I'm just going to like learn to love what I was born with. Or not even what I was born with, but what happened in 6th grade. And I really loved it, like, ever since.
You know this. All right.
That's so cool. No, I am not currently in contact with my parents. It's been about 7 months of no contact. No, definitely not. You're not the only one whose hair has changed over the years. The color, too? That's so crazy. So what was it? Like, what did it start out as? And then when did it change, and what did it change to? It was so crazy to me. Like, to just... I was like, I don't know. From like pre-K to... I feel like I categorize my life a lot, too, in terms of, like, school and, like, timing in school. So from pre-K to 2nd grade... my school didn't have uniforms, so we could wear whatever we wanted. And I was such a girly girl at this time. Like, I loved the color pink. I wrote a poem about it in kindergarten, that like pink was my best friend. My room was pink. I loved skirts and tights and cute little shirts. And so I was really into that for a while. And then in 3rd grade, they announced that our school district was getting uniforms. And I'm pretty sure I cried, because I was like, this is so not fair. And they were like Bermuda khaki shorts or pants, depending on the season, and a blue golf shirt, like a navy blue golf shirt. And I really genuinely think that like just ruined that for me for a time, where I was like, I don't wear normal clothes anymore. And that also kind of, I think, transitioned my life to where I was like girly and into clothes, to where I became a tomboy. Because like on gym days, when we had gym, we would have to wear like basketball shorts and a t-shirt. And I started playing sports at that time, and like we couldn't wear earrings in gym, so I would just take my earrings out and leave them. And I was wearing basketball shorts all the time and like sneakers, and that was that. And that stayed until probably like my freshman or sophomore year in high school. And then I finally started to, like, I don't know, wear, like, a little bit of a wedged boot to school, or, like, throw on an infinity scarf. I was like, I'm a girl. And still really wasn't until recently that I've, like, leaned back into that girly side, you know? Like, I have so much more color in my closet than I've ever had. Probably since I was, like, 8. Oh, but anyway, gosh, what a tangent. So once I started to like play sports and we were wearing uniforms and stuff, like my hair lived in a ponytail. I had long hair. Even when it started to get like a little wavy, it was always like up in a ponytail, like slicked back with gel, you know what I mean? Super smooth. And then either a ponytail or like one of those buns where like you almost pull the ponytail through and it's just like a little loop. That was my go-to for a long time. And so it didn't have as much of an effect on me, I guess, then when my hair started to get all like wavy and curly, because I would still just like slick it back and put it up. But man, once if I ever wanted to wear it down, like I had to straighten it. You know what I mean? I felt like I could never leave it curly, because I was like, what the hell do I do with this? And also, whenever I would go and get my hair cut, I went to this is so like, looking back, I don't know why I did this. There was like a hair cutting place that my dad went to get his hair cut, and he would just get like a buzz, like a military buzz. And they did both men and women's hair, apparently. And I went to go and get my hair cut there. for a time, and they would cut it as if it was straight, and they would like face frame and do like layers and stuff as if my hair was straight, and then blow it out before I left. So I don't think my hair was ever cut or styled for curly hair, you know, until, funnily enough, my husband cut my hair for the first time during COVID. Now I kind of understand it a little bit. Okay. Jess, I just started therapy this past Monday, and it was such a relief that it makes sense. Yeah. Once you start to understand, like, what this stuff is and why you're feeling it, it takes away a lot of its power, you know, because it's no longer like, this is just who I am and, like, this is how I am. It's like, okay, this is a result of this thing, and if it doesn't feel good and I don't like it, then I can change it. What's your work uniform? You have a love-hate relationship. What is it? Black and straight. Now it's switched to a brownish color and sort of wavy. Cool. Yeah, it's like, it definitely takes a little getting used to. But I feel like having some like texture and whatever in your hair is, it's fun. It can be fun if you look at it that way, you know, and if you kind of like learn to love it. So, but it's funny because my sister has like pin straight hair. It's like dirty blonde naturally. It never gets frizzy. It always just looks so nice and feels so smooth. And like, I remember, especially once my hair started to get curly, just being like, I would so love to like switch hair with you. But I'm happy. I'm happy with my hair. It's part of me, you know, and I love me. So uniform is all black and gray, but I want to wear cute clothes. But I'm an aircraft mechanic. Whoa. That is so cool. I don't think I've ever met an aircraft mechanic before. How did you get into that? Like, was that something that you always wanted to do? That's amazing. Wow. Black hide dirt, yeah. I also worked building tables. My husband and I started a woodworking business back in 2016 and 2019. And I would wear like the same, you know, 2 or 3 outfits like every day because I didn't want to get my regular clothes dirty. And I'm a bit of a dirty worker. Like, it happens sometimes, you know what I mean? Paint and stain and glue and all these things. Like, it's bound to make its way onto my pants. But that, I think, also got a little, like, it was something about the job that, like, I never minded for, like, a long time. But then there came a point where I was like, I want to wake up in the morning and actually, like, put on something that's expressing how I'm feeling instead of, like, the same clothes, you know, every single day.
Much easier that way.
Yeah, definitely. You loved planes since you were 9, and now you work for American Airlines, one of the only females. Congratulations, girl. That's amazing.
Follow your path.
Follow your path. Word the fuck up. That's so cool. I have only been on like a big plane, I guess 4 times. It was only 2 trips. And they weren't long, ever. One was from New Jersey to South Carolina, and one was to Florida. And so it was only like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And planes fascinate me. They always have, because it's just amazing that, like, at any given time, there are thousands of people up in the sky in, like, these metal tubes that are just, like, being transported these massive distances. And even, like, being in the plane during, like, yeah, true. During, like, takeoff and stuff, where it's, like, you're going so fast. It's crazy. It's such an experience. And I would love one day in my life to travel to, you know, Europe, anywhere overseas. And, like, the thought of a 6-hour plane ride over an ocean is definitely, like, a little scary. But I have to remind myself that, like, people do it every day. I'm fine. I agree. We all need to love ourselves and be the parent we needed as children. Yeah. We have to be kind to ourselves and patient with ourselves and all those good things, you know? And it's hard, but it's important. And we're like breaking the cycle in doing so, you know? We're not allowing like past trauma to dictate how we act in the present and the kind of life that we're going to create for ourselves in the future. And that's admirable. So I'm drinking matcha. Random, but I got it for the first time at the store the other day at Costco. And I was like, I've heard a lot about matcha. It's supposed to be good for you. So I got a scoop in my tea right here. And it's not bad. It's very strong. It has like a very strong green tea taste. Or like, I feel like I could taste like tea leaves in it or something like that. But it's not bad. It's just strange sometimes, I think, to drink something that's green. But that's just like mental. You just have to like get over that mental hurdle where it's like, just because it's green and I'm ingesting it doesn't mean that it's gross. Thanks. It was my dream job, but I somehow took another path. Amazing to hear. Totally. Gabby, just lined up your podcast to listen to and running in the morning. Thank you so much. That's so awesome. So I guess we could talk a little bit about the most recent episode, if you want to, which just dropped 2.5 hours ago. We were talking about my decision to go no contact and how to set and maintain boundaries with your narcissistic parent, which can be really tricky. So I guess if you guys have any questions about going no contact or boundaries or anything else, send them my way. We are 11 episodes in, and thank you to everyone who's been watching the podcast and, you know, engaging with the videos and subscribing to YouTube. We've got almost 700 subscribers on YouTube, which is pretty crazy. And I don't know, I never thought that this would become such a focus in my life, and I'm so happy that it has, you know, and I'm happy to dedicate as much time to this as I am. And now on YouTube, we've got the podcast. We've got It's Not Normal, 11 episodes of that, which it's also available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We've got the I Did the Research series, which is available here on TikTok as a playlist. We've also got that going out on YouTube also. And then there's the most recent series of videos, Subreddit Storytime, which I'm really excited about. And I would totally love your feedback on that series of videos. I've seen so many people do the Am I the Asshole like subreddit stories and kind of reading them aloud and reacting to them. And I've been on the Raised by Narcissists subreddit for so long. As soon as I really discovered like how to use Reddit and what it was, and there's so much value there in these stories and these conversations that are happening and these experiences that I felt like it was a really great thing to start sharing them. All anonymously, obviously, because, you know, I know how scary it can be to speak openly about your experience with a narcissistic or abusive parent or partner or whatever it might be. But I think, I don't know, that kind of perspective has been so valuable and so helpful for me that I kind of wanted to extend that to you and, you know, anyone who's interested. So we've got 2 episodes of that that are out, and yeah, I would love to hear what you think about it. Ola, the podcast, it's my podcast and it's called It's Not Normal, and everything that I do is linked in the link tree in my bio. So the podcast itself is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So if you prefer to watch, you can watch on Spotify also, but you can have like the horizontal video on YouTube or just listen on Spotify. It is all there. Your path is so meant for you, and may your dreams be bigger. That's so awesome. I've seen the word path a couple of times in the comments, and I can't stop myself, but I can't stop myself from mentioning the woodworking business that my husband and I started back in 2019 is called Path Design. And the reason that I named it Path, it was an idea that I came up with when I was in college. I was in my second semester of college, like the first week or two. And over that first winter break, I had, dabbled a little bit in woodworking for the first time and had done a project for someone. And I remember delivering that project, and someone, this was an adult here who was so happy with the work that I did, and also was kind of treating me like an adult, where they were asking for my 2 cents, like design wise, like, oh, what would you do in this space or here? And design is, a really big interest of mine, and it has been for a long time. So I remember going back to school, and I was in my humanities class, which I had worked so hard to get into that class to have that professor. And here I am like 2 weeks in, and he would start off every class by like dimming the lights and playing like meditation music. And we would do 10 minutes of stream of consciousness writing. And I remember I still have it in my journal, writing like, this is going to be my last day of college. Like this is just not meant for me. And I had been thinking of, business names and what to call a business, because I always wanted to be my own boss. And, I threw around ideas with like my name and something woodworking related, but I was like, it's so much bigger than that. And so one of my favorite quotes of all time is by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And it's, "Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path, and leave a trail." And that's something that's always resonated with me. Like even when I was younger, throughout elementary school, I got picked on a lot because I was like a smart kid, and the teachers liked me. And, I always remember thinking like, I'm not going to change my behavior or the things that are important to me for the sake of, other people. And that was just, I don't know, it always rang true for me throughout my life. And it was very similar with this decision where I was always so academically focused. I graduated first in my class in elementary school and high school. I was like an overachiever, just like textbook overachiever. And then here I am like 2 weeks into my second semester of college, and I'm going to drop out. And I remember thinking like, I am going to tell everyone in my life this, and they're going to react like crazy. Just like, no way. Like you would never do something like that. But I knew that it was the right thing for me. And I feel like the reason that the name Path resonated with me so much was because I think so often, especially when you're growing up and you're, in high school, you have this idea of all the things that you should do. You know what I mean? It's like you go to high school, you go to college, you study something good, you graduate, you get a good job, you work until you retire, and, you get a house and you get married and you have a family and this, that, and the other thing. It all seems to be laid out for everyone. Like everyone has the same steps to follow. But that's so not the case, because everyone is so individual. Your interests are individual. The things that you want out of life are different from everyone else. And you shouldn't ever feel bad for wanting to pursue those things, And I think so often, especially if it's something that's a little outside the box or outside the norm, not too conventional, people have a negative sort of knee-jerk reaction to that, where it's like, well, why don't you just stay in school? Like, that's the safe thing to do. That's what you should do. And it's like, but if that's not what feels true to me, then why should I do that? And so much about that business and just my life in general, I think, is following that mentality of just following your path, doing whatever it is that you want to do, that you're most passionate about. Okay, what would have to happen on your parents' end to even reconsider breaking no contact respectfully? I last left off with my parents with a letter that I dropped off to them. And so I think they would just have to, I guess, agree to have the really difficult, uncomfortable conversation that I've been asking for like the last 5 years. And also, I think they have to be in a place where they're ready and willing to, I guess, start on a healing journey of their own and really do some like self-reflection and understand, why they are the way they are, how that's affected their life and their relationships. Just be open, not defensive, and just have that dialogue, I guess. If your narc parent shows up at your door and won't go away, I would say if anyone shows up at your door and won't go away, if they are not welcome, I would probably make a phone call to the authorities. That's probably like the safest bet, to just not, if you don't feel safe, obviously don't open the door, don't let them in. I would say it's probably safest to involve other people of authority, to kind of get them involved in the situation.
Content of the latest podcast.
Agreed. Don't let yourself be alone. You can kind of document the conversation. Yeah. One thing I learned was apologies mean nothing without changed actions. Agreed. I saw a TikTok just the other day that said, ignore the words and observe the actions, something along those lines. And it's so true. Like, you can say whatever you want, right? And promise that this is going to happen or that's going to happen or I'm going to change my behavior or I'm going to, whatever it might be, react in this way. But if the actions don't line up with the words, then the words don't really matter. Like, you show your true character and behavior in the things that you do. You kind of have to back up what you're saying, I guess. And if you don't, then it's like, how much can I really trust what you're saying? What is the religious reason that you can't go no contact? Even if you are, younger and financially unable to go no contact with your parents or move out of your family's house, boundaries are really important. Understanding the behavior that you will or will not tolerate, trying to understand how and when to say no and to feel confident enough standing up for yourself. And, if you have to, I guess, try to avoid being baited by comments. I think, I know that my parents and my narcissistic parent definitely has said things that like strike a chord in me. You know what I mean? Because your parents know you in a specific kind of way, I guess. And I think narcissists really know sometimes like what to play on to get a reaction out of you. It's kind of like a bully, and they enjoy that reaction. And I myself have found myself kind of like falling into that trap. And so it's important to like recognize when something is just being said to get a reaction out of you and to not react, to help. Because if they're not getting that reaction, then what are they getting out of it? Maybe nothing. That might discourage them from doing it again. Even just tips that I've seen on setting boundaries within a narcissistic family is avoid sharing too much personal information, things that are important that if your narcissistic parent knew about, they could maybe use to control you or manipulate you. Whatever you can control on your own, like, whether it's a phone plan or, a car insurance, if you can kind of take care of those things on your own, have them in your name, you pay for them, that's always really beneficial. I think the less reliant you are on a narcissistic parent, the harder it is for them to maintain any kind of control over you. Ashanti, if you were to ever choose to have children, how do you navigate the guilt around that? I constantly get guilt tripped for not fostering a relationship between them, but I can't allow my daughter to be manipulated and used for narc supply as I have. That's a great question. And I have thought about that. Just like one day, if I do decide that I want to have a kid, like what would that relationship look like? And there's probably going to be a decent amount of time between now and when I have to actually face that question, in reality. But I guess I just think about the ways that I was manipulated and the things that were told to me by my narcissistic parent, the relationships of mine that were negatively affected because I was taking on my narcissistic parent's opinion, or, I was kind of believing what they wanted me to believe and acting in a certain way. And as a result of that, maybe I didn't develop certain relationships as much as I would have liked to. And so, just the idea that if I had a kid one day and they were ever left alone with my narcissistic parent, I wouldn't put it past them to, whisper in their ear something really negative about me to try to start to drive a wedge between me and my own kid. And I think that thought in and of itself is enough for me to kind of let go of a lot of that guilt. And I guess I would also try to make sure that my kid does have other people in their lives, maybe even a little bit older, that they can look to as, grandparent type figures, or I want them to have a good solid base of people that they can talk to and rely on, like a community, a family. And I think something that I've realized is that family doesn't always necessarily mean blood. Sometimes your chosen family consists of the people who actually truly care for you and accept you for who you are and want the best for you. And so I would probably try to continue that with my kid. I think sometimes I'm scared to have a family because I have to let go of a lot of the hypervigilance that I am currently still dealing with. I have 2 dogs, and I am always aware of what they're doing and what they need, in addition to my husband. But as soon as they start licking the water bowl and it's empty, it's I am up and out of my chair. Or I'm aware they're pacing back and forth. I'm okay, they need to go out. And if it rains, the other day we had a really, really bad storm here. And so we couldn't go outside and play with them like we normally do. And so I knew that they were bored. And I felt bad all day because I was man, I just wish they got to run around a little bit. And it's I need to pump the brakes on this just a little bit before I bring another human being into the world. Crazy. Purple. But I wonder, if you heal yourself, why don't you just move on? Well, one, the healing journey is non-linear, I would say, and there's no real start and stop, I don't think. No real start and end, at least in my experience so far. I've also, I guess, gone throughout this time, and I've had realizations here and there where they kind of just pop up randomly, or maybe sometimes they're prompted by something. And it's only then in the moment. I described it, I think, in one of the podcast episodes, when you're playing a video game and you have a character that's just a silhouette because you haven't unlocked them yet. And it's you don't have what you need yet to have access to this character. I feel that is sometimes where these memories are, or where these realizations are, where it's it's here, but I can't see it yet. And then sometimes once maybe you're ready, you're either in a safe environment, right? Or you are kind of doing the work yourself to kind of trace these things back. And then all of a sudden it's okay, now I can see it because now I can handle it. And so I've moved on from a lot of things, but I don't think that I've moved on from, or I've healed from every single thing. And I think it's just a constant process and evolution. I think as humans also, we're always growing, and it's a really great thing to always be evolving and trying to make yourself better. And unfortunately, I think when you grow up enduring a lot of childhood trauma, and you're dealing with that now for the first time as an adult, it's so clear sometimes how what you endured as a kid has influenced the way that you react or that you feel as an adult. And so you're constantly reminded of it sometimes. So I think that's why it's not so black and white, where it's like, okay, well, you feel better now. Like, you put the work in for a couple months, just move on and forget about it. You know, it's something that's very present and recurring. Yes, I definitely find comfort in other stories similar to mine, and to other people who have gone through similar things. Definitely makes me feel less alone, like I'm valid in my experience and my emotions, and it's just nice to be able to talk to other people who understand what this is like. Great question. Do you think that having children and actually treating them how I always needed to be treated can heal the wounded child, teenager, adult in one's person? This is going to be different for everybody. I'm sure. I feel like the experience of having a kid is different for everybody to begin with. But in my mind, part of me is excited to play that other role where it's like, even, the kids that are in my life now, you know what I mean? Like the little youngsters that I'm around every now and again. Being the adult who, when they're really upset or they're, having a hard time, can like pull them aside and not yell at them, but I can ask them like, hey, like, why are you feeling like this? Like, let's talk it out, I think implementing all of the things that I lacked is really fun. And it makes me feel good, to know that I'm not perpetuating like a really unhealthy cycle for someone else. And I think it could be cool to like be on the other side of that, where you're providing that stability and that reassurance and that unconditional love, that I definitely think that has the ability to heal a lot of that within yourself. Yeah. Which is pretty cool.
What's next for the podcast?
I'm just catching up on the comments. All right, let's see. So today's Thursday. Next week, we've got another podcast episode coming out, and I am kind of going through a couple of different topics that I'm going to be, that I'm thinking of talking about. And I think I'm going to be going with perfectionism. That's kind of what's on my mind right now. Like, dealing with it. Where did it come from? How do I face it in my day-to-day life? How have I managed that, so that it's not controlling me in an unhealthy way? I think that's the topic I'm going to be diving into. I still have a little bit of time before I can decide. But if you have an idea or a topic or anything that you want me to talk about, definitely let me know. Also, this new series on YouTube, Subreddit Storytime, I also wanted to kind of extend that to anyone. I get a lot of comments and messages sometimes, from people sharing their own experience or asking for advice with something. And if you want me to, I try my best to respond to as many as I possibly can. The comment section, though, is just not big enough. I do not have enough characters. And the DMs can get a little flooded sometimes. But if you want to share your experience, and if you want to hear it talked about, and I can maybe apply whatever I've learned throughout my healing journey and the research I've done on narcissism, obviously, again, anonymously, I'm thinking of, how we can maybe incorporate that into this series where it's, send me your story, let's talk about it, let's get into it, kind of break it down. If I've ever gone through something similar, we can get into that, and how I felt, how I managed to overcome it or heal from it, or if I haven't. I'm just really thinking of as many ways to keep this conversation open and going. And so, yeah, let me know what you think about that. Definitely something that I would like to include moving forward. So, yeah. But with that, I have a little bit of editing that I have to do. So I think I'm going to be hopping off pretty soon. But thank you to everybody who has tuned in. Thank you so much to everyone who has found my TikTok and actually chosen to follow along. That's really cool. Please head over to YouTube if you have a minute and let me know what you think about this most recent podcast episode and the new subreddit Storytime series. I'm very excited to hear what you guys have to say, and I'll be back on soon with another live. But until then, happy Thursday to everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night and an awesome rest of your week. Bye.